And Mark, if we get cut off at any point, you need to. I've got my phone. If the internet connection goes out,
Grand, no worries. No, so that's grand. So it's Lisa's birthday. Lisa and myself are the coaches. We're on the top left. So happy birthday, Lisa.
Thank you.
It seems like everyone I know has a birthday this year, so that's great. But, we'll mooch on. So we won't keep the lads too long. Oh, there's Oisin. Look at the head on Oisin. Look at the state of him there.
I love the head, Oisin.
Oh, wow.
I know. He was he was like we were preparing him for preparing himself for some kind of ritual in a concentration camp or something. So there was a lot of running up and down hills in Galway today. How did you get on, guys? Everyone?
Grand.
No, nobody pulled anything, or Emma, you were out early this morning, 7:30.
Yeah, no, it's so windy though.
Yeah, not so bad.
Yeah, no escaping it.
Very good. So we'll just start chat maybe with the lads here, and just as a quick intro, I know Paul hardly at all. So this is the first time I've seen it. I met you before, I think once, and I know your dad quite well, like and your brother obviously. But Paul's dad was a fantastic runner. As you know, like as we go through this, everything you hear, take it with a pinch of salt. But we know you guys better than Paul would, and I think Paul would be the first to say that, training is kind of personal. Like you've got two kids there, Marcus and Dylan, isn't it? And well, you have three kids, but I think you said to me as well that you totally different training for the two different kids. So it's different when you have a fairly big gang than when you've got, one person. You can be sensitive and do what they do and train. So things are a bit different. There's a couple of different routes to places. But Paul, I will say that we know you better, but Paul would know athletics better than me. And has seen it all basically, and whatever he does know, he can ask the missus, and
she knows.
Well, you know what I mean. So, and I suppose an old saying in athletics is, if you want to get to the Olympics, choose your parents wisely. So, from that perspective, Marcus has made a good choice there, but who knows what the future will bring. So anyway, I said, hey Ben, maybe. Yeah, go on, Lisa.
I didn't say anything.
Oh yeah, I'm going to stick a chat window on the side, and we won't. Where is it? Yeah, here. And if anyone has any questions they want to ask, you can either pop them in the chat, and I'll pick on you to call them out probably, or just put your hand up and ask something. So maybe I might start off, Paul, with yourself. If that's okay. I don't have any preparation or anything like that. I'm not a DJ. So other people
out getting prepared to get eaten by wasps out here. So
All right. Well, that'll be entertaining. That's probably more entertaining than a Q&A, to be honest with you.
This will probably blow away at some point, so that's all right.
Yeah.
You look like a DJ there, Mark, I have to say.
I look like a DJ, right? Okay. So I guess, Paul, maybe do you want to talk about yourself? What age did you start getting into the running, and what kind of running did you do from, a young age? Let's maybe talk through that for a bit.
Yeah, sure. So, back in, so I'm 40 now, so this would have been back, in the 80s, doing community games, of course, was just the be all and end all of running back when I was a kid. And this was, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You always tried to be the fastest in your town, and if you were, you went on to the counties, and then you went on to the All-Irelands. And my younger brother, he's 2 years younger than me, was qualifying, when he was under 8s and under 10s, and I was terrible. I mean, I couldn't qualify out of our town. I think the first time I qualified in the county was when I went on to nationals. I think I was probably like 15 at that time. So, but everyone develops at different speeds, and so I was just, I think, a late developer. And, I remember competing in the All-Ireland cross country. I think it was the B championships, and I think I finished like 50th. And I was about maybe 13 or 14. And then I started training. My dad was coaching me. And then a year later, I was third in the junior schools All-Ireland, in the A. So, once you start applying yourself, you can see immediate impact. And and then it kind of went from there, you know.
What age was that Jerry started coaching you?
But that would have been probably junior schools. You know, I'd done
Okay.
the minor schools. So whatever junior.
So you were secondary school at that stage, kind of younger than Marcus, but around that age,
at
maybe
13 or so, and
yeah.
And then and then it kind of took off, you know. So doing the schools, doing, you know, the clubs, and individually coached, you know. So at the time, you know, Loughrea did not have a huge club underage level, so it was, you know, catered towards towards me specifically. So and then just, you know, kept working, kept improving, you know. So.
Did you do a lot of your work on grass, or was it in the field beside you? That's now the field, is it?
We didn't live there when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
so when we were young, you know, I used to go up to the tech school. You know, it was probably like 300 meters around and do 30 laps of it. You know, so a mindless kind of running around the grass and the muck, and some road work. Going into Dangan, you know, once every week, every 2 weeks, you were kind of, you know, we had to put an effort in to go to the track. Whereas here we're spoiled. I mean, we got like 3 or 4 tracks within 5 miles of us, you know, so you forget kind of the hardship sometimes that you got to go, or the effort you got to put in. So.
And were you in a group, Paul?
No, individual. So, you know, happy training myself, and about the age, maybe I was probably the age of 14. My dad asked a guy in Wales to coach me. His name is Mike Rowland, and he used to coach a little bit of coaching Steve Jones, who would a friend of my dad's, kind of
fishing friend.
Yeah, fishing friend, running friend. And so Mike had coached me then, probably when I was like 15, 16, 17. A lot of correspondence, you know, I mean, Mike was in Wales, and he would sometimes come to visit, but you know, he sent me the plan, and I did the plan.
So if anyone hasn't heard of Steve Jones set the world record for the marathon at one stage, and with a 2:08, and he bettered that to a 2:07 at another stage. A super runner. Steve famously had an approach, I guess. He wasn't a heart rate guy, if I recall correctly. He's like an effort guy, effort scale. What kind of training so you were at maybe mid-teens then, and Steve has coached some Galway runners, like including Gary Thornton. Well, mainly Gary Thornton, I think, is the only one at one stage. What kind of training would his coach, Gary Rowlands, have had you on?
Yeah, Mike. So, you know,
Mike Rowlands, sorry.
Yeah, like 50 miles a week, a lot of speed work, you know, so a lot of quality, but also didn't neglect certainly getting the volume up. And probably so I went to St. Rayfields in Loughrea. You know, after St. Rayfields, I went down to do a postgrad at North Monastery in Cork, which was kind of preparing a number of people to go to the US and get a good extra year of high school. And we kind of, I think that was important. Getting that extra year of development before coming to the US was helpful in strengthening me up. So, but probably 50, 60, maybe topping out at like 60 miles a week by the time I was, you know, a senior, which would be, you know, last year in high school. Yeah.
But unfortunately, you'll notice if you have EU runners over there, their watches are bleeping every kilometer, and the Americans every mile. Over here, we bleep on the kilometers. So for the guys like here, 60 miles a week is around about 100K, something like that. And I think, you know, we have some people maybe on around like 80, 85K, but they'd be very few of the school kids, you know, but around that age, like so. And then when did you decide that you'd like to go to the States, Paul? Sorry, Marcus, we'll talk about you in a bit. It's all right, you just chill out. We just want you to come and run with us for the crack when you come over, right? We over in Kylebrack, or that we'll have a few sessions. So sorry, go on, Paul.
No, it's good for Marcus to know that I actually had a life before he was born, you know. So, and I was an okay runner. But you know, so you were saying about, you know, certainly.
Yeah, what age did you say, or you know, when did you decide? Okay, this is America. I know America was the thing, especially in your dad's era, and it still is. But I think, you know, things have improved a little bit in Ireland in some colleges. So we have other doors there. Yeah,
probably my 4th year. So 4 to 5 years, right? So in secondary school, you start to get, universities contacting you, sending you brochures. At that time, they would send you media guides. Providence, of course, had just a great reputation for recruiting, Irish athletes primarily. I mean, my roommate in college was Keith Kelly, who, had won NCAAs when I was there, and, finished in the 20s at World Cross. And we had just Liam Reilly was there. We had a great crew. And then it grew from there. I mean, you always, we're biased as certainly being in the United States for so long. Steph works at Providence now. But there are a lot of great institutions in America, but it all depends on the athlete. It 100% depends on what you want to get from it. And there, I went to PC and did some stuff wrong and some stuff right. And but I look back at the institution saying, it was a good fit for what I wanted to do, and the people around me were great. If I'd have went down, to Florida, I would have baked, and I would have been. It just wouldn't have been a good fit. So I think identifying where those places are, it's a fantastic opportunity. I mean, they're investing $250,000 in you for higher ed over 4 years, probably even more nowadays. So, but there's a lot of great Irish institutions too. Certainly things have improved a lot since I, left Ireland, which UCD was the only one at that time, a little bit of DCU, but I think now, there's other places you can go.
Yeah, and we have Jack there somewhere, is in NUIG. He was there. Oh yeah, he's there in the middle. And NUIG locally has improved a lot. But I think back to what we did have an athlete that we've only had one collegiate out of the club. We're the village next over from Loughrea, Marcus. By the way, it's just if you want to go to civilization from Loughrea, you go through us, not to us. But basically. I guess he came in a couple of weeks ago, and I think he was in he's down in McNeese, which is one of those bacon hot areas, and it's
Louisiana.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he's gone on to do a master's now, I think, as scholarship as well. And he liked it. He found it hard. I think the message most of us got was, wow, it's a lot of work, and you're working for your degree. It's tough work, but he still said that this is building character, and I liked it, and I'm getting something out of it,
Yeah.
So I guess when you go to Providence, and we'll take the leap there. So the kind of sessions you were getting from Bob,
Mike.
is it Mike?
Yeah,
sorry,
Mike, yeah.
Were what kind of sessions they were? Was it fartlek? What was your quality like?
Yeah, so Mike, Mike is an artist. He's a professional artist. So he really brought out flexibility in my training, and fartlek was big, but also giving me a lot of decision-making power, which it certainly helped my running, but I think it's actually helped my life more so than my running. Just the ability to think for yourself on the fly. If something's not going well, to have the power to say, listen, this session is not going well today. I need to be able to say, stop, or there's other times when you really feel on the ball and you want to push through it. So it was certainly individual work. When you go to a university, you're going to get a lot more group stuff, right? So when you're training in a group for cross country, you could all be doing 8 by 2 minutes. There are faster people, there are slower people, but you're a team and you're moving towards a team goal, even though, of course, you've got your own individual goals as well. So track is a little bit different. You start to become a little bit more specialized, but the distance crew would train together. Six or eight of us at the time. There was 3 or 4 4-minute milers. There was at least 6 of us that could run 14 minutes for 5K. So we were all moving as a pack. And some days you've got good days, you've got bad days, but it was a nice group of people that I think everyone came on from that.
And I suppose sometimes, because I might send around to the WhatsApp group these kind of ancient videos, and I don't know if you see one there from a few weeks ago I sent, was like a 10K in Phoenix, and there was this skinny little Irish guy, you might know who he was, who was like beating everybody. His name was John Tracy. So it was his brother is the head cross-country coach in Providence. Isn't that right, Ray?
That's correct.
He was your coach. So what's the story? What was Ray's philosophy? What is Ray's philosophy, would you say? And how did you find him as a guy? You can, whatever. Tell me the differences there and what you saw out of it. You know, what kind of stuff was he looking for?
Yeah, so you sometimes get these. Ray is quintessential Irish, and he hasn't changed a whole lot. So um, and so you certainly get there are more institutions in the United States that are recruiting international now. So Marcus O'Sullivan's down in Villanova, another fantastic coach, and he gets where people are coming from in regards to transitioning. So Ray's a great guy. I mean, he looks out for the long-term development of the athletes. So we would go to Big East championships, and we would always, for track and field, and we would finish nearly at the bottom of the field because we didn't have discus throwers, we didn't have jumpers. But Ray never felt the need to double or triple us up like other coaches at other conferences. He would think, what do you want to get out of the season? Is it you want to race 5K there? Do you need to run a 1500? He wasn't points focused. He was certainly more interested in the development of the athlete. And I see Ray, probably only once or twice a year now, just because we're all busy with our own lives. But he hasn't changed, and it's like you just you get caught up, chatting about the stuff that we did, and he's been there for a long time, the 1980s. So certainly, I think the US certainly is in its own bubble. But Ray, I think, probably hasn't gotten the kind of respect maybe in Ireland as he probably should have gotten, because
he was a phenomenal runner even in itself.
Him and John just incredible, and John went to Providence, and some of the the early Olympians a lot of them were Providence based. So Ray would coach the same now as he would have coached in the 90s and in the 80s, right to the athlete, right to the development.
Okay, very good. So and of course, like you mentioned Keith Kelly. What was Keith like? I'm a Keith fan, by the way.
Oh, good. Yeah. Keith, I think he was a year ahead of me, maybe 2 years ahead of me. He was, how do you put this? When you're a runner, you're used to individual focus. You want to do your own thing. A lot of runners are pretty stubborn. They want to, they want to just kind of focus on their own stuff. And Keith was one of the few people that I would say that I would follow him into hell. So, because he's charismatic, and he was able to lead a group of us. And, and back in 2000, we finished third in the country, and he won nationals, out in Iowa. And that's the highest place Providence had been since 2000, so that was a group of people that, I remember going out and playing tennis, just a tennis game, and Keith came out and berated me because we had a meet in 3 weeks, and he didn't want me to get injured. And at the time, I thought, I'm just playing tennis. But that level of focus and bringing us all together as a team, I couldn't have higher things to say about Keith. If you've met Keith, you literally will love him from day one, and he cared a lot about everyone else on the team, not just himself.
Yeah, I used to follow his blog mainly for the music when he had it back about 100 years ago.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? So Keith had his problems with injury, with knees and stuff like that. Is that something you ever had? Or Keith's last race last run that I remember was he won the national senior cross country, and then pretty much after that he said, "Oops, my knee's not feeling great," and he was done. What's the story with yourself, Paul? You've had injuries as well, haven't you? Don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
Keith had like kind of a curvature of the spine. So if you ever seen Keith run, he had kind of, structural, I think, stuff that led him to have certain kinds of injuries. He got into biking. He became a Category 1 cyclist, so he cycles basically much at the, just below pro level. So at least he was up to recently. So I had some stress fractures in college. I broke my collarbone. I fell at the start of the Penn relays and got up and ran 14:08 or something, and so, but I had, 2 stress fractures, one in my femur. When you start to run 90 miles a week, 100 miles a week, you're going to get injured. It's the nature of it. All you can do is hope and do the right proactive and preventative stuff, but you're going to get hurt. So, getting some assessment on a consistent basis at least would help that.
And did you, like, when you were in college in Providence, was there a diet and sleep thing, or did you just cut loose anyway, or was it was it different from that perspective? Like, watching out for each other and making sure if he was making sure you weren't playing tennis, he was probably
Yeah.
trying to keep you honest in other ways too, right?
Yeah, honest
Or
and
was it a
always.
bit of
Did we cut loose? Absolutely. So I think times have changed. I was there in 1998 to 2002. Now you get onto Providence now. They have. I mean, what do they have? They have like everything. They have everything. Like they have those chambers, the cryogenic chambers. They have the warm baths. They have the ice stuff. They have like so much resource that actually we didn't. They actually have a track. We didn't have a track when we were there. So that even the professionalism has changed a lot since we were in college, because a lot of other places, and they do core, they do strength work, they do yoga.
It sounds a lot like Craughwell AC. What was I going to say? Any questions they want to ask Paul first about college training, or how many, like, what was the balance, do you think, of intense, 80-20 or whatever? Was it 40, 50-50? Was it all hard? How did it work out that way?
Yeah, I don't have a percentage. We used to
Yeah.
do 2 workouts a week. Workouts I would say were fairly standard. So we in cross country season, which was Providence's focus at the time. Ray, I would say 18 to 20 minutes was a typical amount of kind of hard running. So whether that was 10 by 2 minutes, 6 by 3 minutes, 4 by 6 minutes, those were the core session. We would do tempos in Lincoln Woods, which is a 2.5 mile hilly road loop. Those would be 5 miles accurately measured, could be anywhere from 25 minutes flat to 25-30. And then our consistent training during the week was a lot of kind of, I guess, threshold, because we would just go out and run 8 miles in 46 minutes, so it was a lot of kind of strong core work, long runs, 16 miles, sometimes 18. It would be probably done around 6 minute pace, 6:15 pace.
So all kind of classic stuff, really, if you can put it that.
Yeah.
And did you meet the missus in college, was it? Stephanie?
And you were before we went to college. We were good friends. We weren't dating. She went a year ahead of me to Providence. She actually went down to Waterford for a postgrad year. And then we started dating my sophomore year. So we were actually good friends. We were on Irish team for the European cross country. I think it was in Belgium at the time, back in like 96 or 97. So we knew each other back then.
Okay, and I suppose she was track all the way. She's a steeplechaser. We've one steeplechaser somewhere. One girl who went off to Europe doing a steeplechase. Alva over there in the corner smiling, with the ladies team there last year. But she wouldn't be quite at Stephanie's level. But there's nobody here really probably at Marcus's level either. Well, maybe some lads would put it up to him, to be honest. But they're a lot older. So. Yeah, do you have any kind of things for, like, did Stephanie do a lot of hurdles work or technical work, or was it all endurance she did and added on top, you recall?
Yeah, so she was in secondary school, she was a 400-meter hurdler. So
okay.
She didn't do steeplechase. I mean, there was no women's steeplechase back then. It only came in kind of when we were in college or later. So in college, I think she tried the steeplechase maybe in her last year in college, and I think she probably ran around 12 minutes to give you some perspective. We went off after we graduated. We did our master's degree at Providence. Had the boys. Marcus is born 2005, so we graduated our master's in 04. So, and Dylan was born in 07. So Steph was training away, but she came back and started really racing in 2012 when she qualified for the European Championships in the steeple. So all of her good training and good racing was actually done after she had the two boys. And so, yeah, she would do drill work. She would do strong, strong longer sessions. Certainly more of a track runner than a cross-country runner, for sure.
Yeah.
What would her mileage have been like, Paul, at that time?
Yeah, I mean, she likes to do, even now, she'll run 6 miles a day. So she would normally do singles. We would do typically double days in college because once you got to 100 miles a week, it's kind of hard to do it in singles. But after, about 2012, 2013, she was probably doing 60 miles a week consistently, maybe touching 70 at times. She didn't get a lot of injuries, like more.
Just
Good at doing the core work, the drills, the strength stuff that I didn't do, and that's probably why I got broken down a little bit more.
Yeah, it's always hard. A lazy endurance runner runs 100 miles a week. I think that's what they say. I forgot to mention we have another international steeplechaser as well. Kyle got picked on the Irish team there last year, and did well over in the schoolboys for the steeplechase.
Awesome.
See anything else? So maybe we'll go on to now. You were an athlete there for a long time, and you're known now as the kind of sluggish one in the family. Like the wife is Marcus is, whatever. So what's the deal? How's that transition been, and to a coach? You were kind enough to share some of the work you're doing with Marcus with me, so I can see the kind of things you're doing. Yeah, talk about that and how's it going? And Marcus, you can pep in here and tell the truth.
Yeah, Marcus is he's probably the most relaxed I've ever seen him now. But since he was a baby, he would just be so energetic, and we were doing, from the age of 5, doing soccer, doing basketball later, a few years later, occasionally jumping in a race, but never really taking it seriously, never training in any way. So we would do what we call the Junior Olympics here, which is basically a cross-country race every year. And so, Marcus would do those, and he would finish in 50s, 60s, sometimes higher, 20s, depending on the year. And then about last year, a year and a half ago, he was starting to get to the point where, he's a strong, athlete, but he was doing soccer at the high level in Massachusetts, was doing the highest level of basketball, the runner-up in state championships, and then track and field. And it came to the point where it was like, well, what does he love and what does he want to do? So he said that he wanted to start running. And so at that point, he was still doing some basketball, but started to do a little bit more running, 15 miles a week. And then it's just progressed up until now, which, you've seen the training I've sent, where, it's 35, 40 miles a week now, starting over the last few weeks. And that's, I love it. I get more nervous watching it, but I also get more excited about seeing the success, but also more disappointment with the failure. So being a parent, of course, is just, I think, harder in general to watch your own kids do it. But even when you're coaching other athletes that are not your kids, seeing them is a lot more nerve-wracking watching people race than doing it yourself.
Oh, totally. There's another coach he's kind of finished up there this year in Craughwell, but he's from Loughrea, Eddie McNally. I don't know if you know Eddie. Yeah, but Eddie always told me coaching is like that. You have race horses, and it's just you don't have to feed and water them, and it's just a bit of crack sending them out. So that's kind of the way I view you guys. Sorry about that. So that's grand. So I noticed on Marcus's stuff, I'll just talk about maybe you do some of the bread and butter stuff, which, tempos, the guys here, we do a lot of aerobic development stuff, I guess, a lot of tempos and some easy running, and we do one bit of intensity a week roughly, of like mostly sprinty kind of stuff. So generally we space them out a bit. I noticed that you have an interesting session, and you said you got it from Jack Daniels, which is your back-to-back days, Marcus. And that's one thing that struck me about it. Another thing is you're doing a lot of hills, which is, we kind of do them in bursts, and we mainly because Craughwell is flat as a pancake, but now we have the COVID, we can send people off to find hills and places. So we're doing it for a month now, and they all did it today, which is probably we're all a bit flogged and quiet. But yeah, so that was two things I noticed. So maybe if you talk to those. And
yeah, so our back-to-back days usually we'd have, like, during the middle of the week we go down to Lincoln Woods where my dad used to run, and I do like a 6 to 7.5 mile like tempo at around like six flat pace or even under, and then I'd come back the next day and I'd do hills. I do all kinds of different hills. we have like a driveway that's about 200 meters long, and we do hills on that. And there's a minute long hill about a mile down the road. So I do like 8 by a minute, or like sometimes we measure it and we do 400s. And so it kind of varies week to week, but hills are definitely like a staple session in my training program. We do like at least one hill session a week usually.
What would be your favorite kind of session, Marcus?
Well, I always love doing sessions on the track. Race pace sessions are always the best. Like if I do like 800s at mile pace or 400s at 800 pace, it's just like, it's so fun getting to go like that fast, you know?
Yeah, I'll take your word for it because I can't get that fast anymore, but that's okay. Or never could really, I'd say. So that's good. So in the hill side, let me see anything else. Anybody else got any questions there while I think of one?
Is Providence one of the leading colleges in the US, or where is it ranked?
It's a good question. So I work at a different university. I work at Worcester Polytechnic, which is actually, so there's actually different divisions. There's a Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3. Providence is a Division 1 institution. It's not necessarily, sometimes it has to do with the size of the institution, or if an institution wants to be Division 1. So you can get scholarships at Division 1 and Division 2, sports scholarships. Division 3 you cannot. But there's a lot of great institutions that are Division 3, like MIT is Division 3, we're Division 3. But you know, certainly a lot of Division 2, more so down south. In regards to rankings, Providence is, you know, I mean, I don't know, top 40, top 50 in regards to like cross-country programs. It depends what you're looking for. I mean, if you're looking for a big, robust track program, you're not going to get actually many of those in the Northeast. You're going to probably go down south, some of the SEC schools. But then, you know, I mean, I was just reading an article. I can't think of her name. It was in 800-meter runner. She was Irish girl that went to America and then came back, you know. I went down south somewhere. So, not Nadia Power.
Yeah, we had our coach on there 2 weeks ago here in a Zoom call. Yeah, he was better than you, to be honest.
I know, way better. But Providence was one of her top 3 schools. But she decided to go away from Providence, and she went to a place that probably wasn't a great fit for her as well. So it depends what you're looking for. I mean, if you're looking for a really strong academic institution, well, you're probably better off going to Harvard or Stanford. Not easy to get scholarships there as international or as any form of student. So, you know,
they don't do the athletic scholarships either, do they? As much, I think, because I think we heard that from Damien, that they don't really do the athletic scholarship to those Ivy Leagues. Yeah,
they'll usually package aid in some way in order to get you a full scholarship. They won't call it. They won't call it athletic scholarship. They'll call it the Mark Davis Scholarship for exceptional thinking.
Nothing exceptional associated with that name.
$50,000 a year. So.
Very good. So, Marcus, where do you see things going? Are you enjoying the running now still as much? I know you have a little injury at the moment, do you, or a little niggle for this week?
Yeah, it's just a little bit of like a quad problem. You know, it hasn't been that serious. I can still run on it, which is good. So it's not been that serious.
Yeah. Have you any competition locally in New England or around there? That nowhere really, I suppose, at the moment at your age. Yeah.
Last year during nationals, there's a kid from the same state as me in Massachusetts. His name's Nathan Lopez, and he was a really good competitor. During cross country, I think I only beat him by a second in one race, and we went on to regionals, and I beat him by 7 or 8 seconds. So he's always been around the same level as me. He's a year older than me, but I still race him a lot. And during track nationals, you know, he beat me one time. I've beat him a few other times, so he's probably been one of my best competitors to race against.
So what was your favorite? You've had a few good results, even though you're only young, and we don't want it to go to your head and all the rest of it because it's the whole future. Yeah, well, what was your favorite race, would you say, so far? So like 2 of the key ones that had come to my mind, you set the world record for the kilometer for your age group.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna
for
say
the
that was
mile.
my favorite race.
That was your favorite, was it? Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe talk us through that.
So, yeah, before the race, it was a pretty big meet actually. There were a lot of pros racing, and I was just trying to go and relax. I knew the world record was on my mind, 2:29 it was, and I was like, all right, let's just see how this goes, because my previous best for the K was 2:34 before that, so I knew it was going to be a challenge to try and get 2:29, but I knew that I had the ability to get it, and so going into the race, I was with people 10 years older than me, and I was like not even the same size as them, and I was feeling great the entire race. Went through 800 in like 1:59, and then closed in 28. So I ran 2:27, and it felt awesome. Like it was the greatest race I've ever ran.
Ah, that's class. I was looking at like so we had one I don't know if he's online. Paul's not here, but we had a couple of guys in the national seniors, and one was running the 800, and I was looking down through the booklet of the national seniors 800 ranking. We have these little printed booklets, and your name was on it for the seniors in 800 meters. That's a bit actually a bit disappointing, really, from an Irish perspective, but pretty impressive from your own that you did with your, I think, 1:55 or something, was it, or if I recall correctly? Yeah. Amazing stuff. So any questions you want to ask Marcus or Paul? Or
Marcus, what is your favorite distance for racing?
That's a tough question. I like the 800 a lot, but the mile is definitely, it's a really strong event for me. So it'd be hard to choose between those two.
And will you choose, or are you just keeping the both going at the same time now?
Yeah, I'll probably just keep both of them going. During nationals, usually I double, so I'd run the 800 and the mile. So it's really
Same
hard
day?
to choose.
No, different days.
Yeah, different days.
I think you might be in luck when you come to Ireland next. I think your uncle David is talking about setting up a graded mile, big money graded mile in Lochray. And
Yeah, no money though. That's a guarantee for David.
well, not for you if you win it, but somebody else you might have to cough up. So Jack, do you want to ask any questions maybe about the college or that compare? I'm just poking at people that might say something, might have something to say. Jack has some pretty good teammates as well. Pretty spicy lads there in NUIG now. He's not bad himself. Jack beat an Olympian in a 1500 there last year.
Oh really? Who was it?
He just pipped him on the line, Shane Healy.
Oh right. Yeah, he's in top form. Shane is.
So go on, Jack.
Geez, I don't know what to say now.
See, it's not easy for me either. I'm old. My brain is rot. Go on.
How do you work on your top end speed? What kind of
question?
That?
Well, that's why we think hills are important. He certainly does speed work on the track, and we do some drills for sure. But I think, hills are sometimes the best way to develop power, and speed comes from power. So that's why we try to do them all year round in different ways. And sometimes we'll take a week off if he's had just doing a run over a hilly course. But Sebastian Coe did the same stuff. I mean, he did the short burst hills. But it is trying to make sure that it fits the athlete, because there are, hills are not for everyone, they can be brutal too, depending on how you strike the ground and how your body's developing. So you've got to really be working with your coach to make sure, try something, working into it slowly, whether that's 4 reps or 6 reps, and you see where that goes, rather than kind of just jumping in and everyone doing the same stuff. So it's worked so far. I mean, we're always learning. Even like, Marcus gets a little bit of a quad strain. We try to think about, well, what caused it? What can we do different? We'll get some assessments and see where the balance is. And, we'll go back and, nothing's perfect. So we try to just be as flexible as we can, almost on a weekly basis with training.
Would you be having a physio that you would be seeing on a regular basis, or?
No, this is the physio. My dad is it. My dad is, of course, a physio. So I am not by trade, but you pick up certain things just by being massaged over your life. And obviously, I use him as a guide and a consultant. I mean, I was just talking to him earlier. on Messenger just to ask him some guidance about some treatments that he can do. Marcus does go down to, he went down this week to a guy down in Providence. His name is Mike Silva, who works with a lot of the top athletes, works with Molly Huddle and, you know, Emily Sisson, a lot of the Providence group, just to get some assessment. We would love to be getting more consistent massage, but it's tough to get good massage on a consistent basis. People don't do it as well over here.
Probably not these days in particular.
No, certainly not these days, for sure.
Yeah. No, that's good. What would you say, Paul, when you were running? Is Marcus a similar runner, or is he more of a speed over strength, or strength? You know, strength I mean by endurance mostly. You know, what would be the strength? Do you think was yours aerobic power, or was it? You know, what would you have thought was your forte? Is that a stupid question?
No, it's a good question. You know, Marcus is way stronger than I was at his age. I mean, he's 5'10", you know, 145 pounds. He thinks he's all muscle, you know. But you know, I was like the typical distance runner when I was 14, skinny, you know, frail, you know. So he is stronger and certainly has way more power than I did at that age. I was doing more distance stuff, and he's been exposed to more races. So. And I should say this is Steph will probably kill me, but you know, once we get out of this COVID kind of stuff and hopefully travel restrictions start to become a little bit lighter, there are so many great races in the Boston area indoors. I mean, indoors is incredible. You get over to the BU track, these open meets that, you know, if any of your group ever want to come over and they just want to land on our couch and do some races, bring your own sleeping blanket, or we'll kick you outside and lie outside. You know, I mean, they're
this is being recorded, you know.
Yeah, unpromised. But this is a place to get great races, and you can do that, and they're every week, you know. So I know that the Athlone facility is almost just as good now, but it's nice. I mean, you pop over to Boston; it's an easy trip. You get some high quality races. And you know you're guaranteed to get into good races, and people have been coming over from Ireland to do some of these stuff. So, anytime you want to come over, just
hey, that might happen. You never know. I saw William's eyebrows picking up there now. Williams is spicy enough, and he's coming on well. So you never know. We could do something. It might be even better than the old the Portugal training camp. You hear some other clubs talking about maybe a trip to Boston.
Snow here in the winter, but
yeah, well, it does. Like you say, there's plenty of like Kyle there will be in the same age group and friends with Keane McPhillips. Keane would have been. He's the one, you know, Marcus, because he's in the world under 18s.
Yeah.
1,000 meter ranking list. Number 1 is Keane. Number 2 is Marcus. But yeah, he was over. Oh, you ran with him too, did you?
No, I wasn't.
Oh no. It was a different race. Yeah. No, he was over for the Wanamaker Mile, I think, and won it. I don't know if you did see that race. You did.
We did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good run. So anybody, anything else they want to ask? We have a few triathletes here as well. Is there any triathlons in the over at Providence side in terms of college? Is that a thing, or is it purely athletics? I think
it's becoming starting to become a thing. It's not in the Northeast for sure. I'm not sure how much scholarship availability there is. But there's tons of races. I mean, they're all year round kind of stuff. So yeah, Mark's gonna be doing a little bit of biking. He's on Zwift. He's not as good. He's a D level racer. So.
Sure. I think I saw Luke Burke there earlier. Well, actually, we could. That's one thing. We have somebody the same age as Marcus here, Matisse, top right corner. I'd say if you want to add him on Zwift or whatever. Are you on Zwift, Matisse?
No, I'm not on Zwift. No.
You're not on Zwift, all right. Matisse is an aerobic machine as well, in fairness to him, and also got an Irish cap in his age group. So this year, but couldn't make it because the flight was cancelled due to COVID breaking out the next day or whatever, more or less. Anyway, so such is life. Anybody else want to ask anything? Ben is in UL. He's in the college scene down there. Pick on you, Ben, if you have any questions for the lads.
I'm not sure really. Maybe to do with hill sessions, how would you kind of choose between a longer hill session, which I wouldn't really see, that often, and a shorter one?
Yeah, it depends on the week, It depends. We try to look at, are we touching as many speeds as we can, in a week. So, and also seeing how Marcus feels. I mean, we do the back-to-back quality, right? So that could be a Monday and Tuesday, both are quality days, but they're very different kinds of quality. So we wouldn't do fast speed work on one day and then fast speed work on the next day. I tried to think about, well, how would I feel if my coach gave me this on a Tuesday and then I had to go out and do this on a Wednesday? So we tried to back into, Marcus can usually do some of the shorter speed work on the second day, such as hills or such as, fast speed work. On the first day, it's longer stuff because it's harder to go the opposite way around. If you do quality, anaerobic work and then try to go out and do a tempo the next day, you'll just be flogged. I mean, you'll be exhausted. So it's a little bit of experience of, what I typically have felt in my own kind of training, and then seeing how he's doing, Sometimes we make the decision in the warm-up. We have a guide, we want to do certain things, but sometimes we say, oh, well, let's change it because of the wind or, the conditions, or he's feeling a bit tight, let's do something longer. So I say that, and I say, staying in touch with your coach, without driving them crazy, is absolutely essential to your own performance. Because if you're keeping stuff, inside, I mean, Mark, I heard you asking, at the beginning, how's everyone doing? And the Irish answer to everything is grand or sound.
True, yeah.
And whether things are going horrible or whether things are going amazing, you get like a one-word answer. So, so expanding that to, to have that dialogue to say, is there specific metrics about how you're feeling? What is that in regards to pain if you're managing an injury? But the athlete's got to drive that. So you've got to be really open with sharing what's working, what's not working, and then be in constant communication so you can change things as much as you can.
Paul, are you a psychologist to Marcus as well?
I have a master's degree in counseling, but I'm his.
You can help him if he ever happens to lose someday.
Yeah, well, he's done that. We've seen that. His mom is better at that stuff. So, it's, I coached Steph when Steph was competing in the Olympics, and trying to balance obviously a relationship with being a coach can work if it's well integrated, but can certainly have strains. I'm sure Marcus every day gets sick of me in general. But, you try to take the pressure off and not focus on running. We go off and do other stuff, as much as we can. And when we get down to business, it's getting down to business. So, but, you got to find other people. The coach can't be everything, and certainly your parent can't be everything.
No, it's just that you were saying, how the typical answer would be grand for everything. So it can be easy equally to say grand to your dad, or maybe it's easier not to say, no, this is wrong or this is wrong, and knowing then when to support or.
Yeah. And we're all guilty of those one-word answers, those closed-ended questions rather than kind of open-ended. I default to it all the time, and my job is, working with students and trying to help them with kind of academic success. So you try to just recalibrate. We're conditioned to say, how are you doing? Good. Okay, well, let's say, tell me how you're doing. Okay, that's a little bit of a different question. So,
yeah, one thing about the COVID, we had to change things slightly. Before we'd be down and be looking at people and you could see from the form, okay, not tonight or whatever. So it's more paper-based plans and texts and that. But we started sending out a survey every block, pretty much a Google form, and we're trying to ask the specific questions. And actually, you're getting a lot more info about how you guys are doing from that than you would from a text. How's it working for you guys? Grand, is it? But it's I think it's been good, right, Lisa?
Yeah, I was going to say,
it has helped a lot.
You get more information than you do on a session, because you get straight into the session, you're warming up, and it's only really when people maybe stop running that you might find out something's wrong. Whereas we're actually able to keep very in tune with people, I would say, at the moment. Nearly better.
Yeah. Now here's a kind of kind of just an old technical question. You mentioned Daniels and the back-to-back and that kind of thing. Like, there's different philosophies. There's about 10 different ways you can get to Galway, and it's the same with running. And you don't know actually if what you've done with Marcus is optimal. because maybe if you just had him easy running, maybe he'd be better than he is today. Who knows, you know? So I guess I'm wondering, what's your philosophy? Like Daniel's would be periodization and, you know, strict reps, phases, VO2 and tempo. And then you've got like your, you know, your Lydiard to be kind of volume, and then now I'm going to drop the volume and increase the intensity. And like Magnus and them would be sort of specificity. That's kind of where I'm doing a little bit of something all the time. Do you have any, what's your philosophy?
You know, it's when I did my my counseling degree, it was the same thing. Like, so there was like 6 or 7, you know, psychologists and theorists that date back, you know, to the 1900s that had this very specific way of how they worked with people and how they should get information out of that, and then the approach, like whether it's reality therapy or whatever it was. So, but there was also the eclectic, right? You take a little bit of, you know, different parts of what people are preaching, but it should be student-centered, and the student should be driving everything, or the athlete should be driving everything. So it's got to be calibrated around the athlete, I believe. Now, we talked a little bit that it isn't different for an individual than a group, you know. So if you want a group of 6 or 7 people working together, you know, not everyone's going to have a different level of, you know, repetition length, right? So they're going to be working as a unit. We take a little bit of Lydiard, we take a little bit of, you know, the Ingebrigtsens, you know, are kind of starting to turn things on their head a little bit, where I think they're a throwback to what Lydiard used to do, is that volume from a young age, you know, 10, 11, 12 years old, which some of the Africans are doing. We've shied away from that. I mean, the 80s and 90s Western world shied away from doing that. So, so there's no, you know, Marcus could be, like you said, he could be running 222 if he was doing something else.
Who's to know?
but you know, and my approach is that it's not just about running, right? It's about him thinking flexibly about life, because he probably will stop as maybe he'll go a little bit longer than 14, but by 30 he probably might be done. And he's got a lot of living in life to do, so he should be thinking about creative solutions for everything, and maybe his own kids. So so it's not just a template model that we do, and hopefully that's better for people's development.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that answer. So guys, anybody want to ask Paul or Marcus for the secret session that'll make you quick by your next race? Or anything you want? Leah, anybody? No?
How much injury prevention and strength conditioning stuff would you have in your training plan?
Yeah, injury prevention. Yeah, sure. So what did you ask? I've been talking. I'm gonna lose my voice. Injury prevention. What do you do? I mean, you do your hurdles.
Yeah.
Your stuff.
So foam rolling is pretty important. You know, I have a routine. It's about 10-minute foam rolling. Every part of my legs, I foam roll. And then I have band work. I use resistant bands to strengthen the legs. Strengthening your legs is it's the most important thing in preventing injuries. And so anything you can do to like do that without creating too much bulk in your legs so that you get heavier is ideal towards preventing injuries.
Yeah. We also do some hurdle drills, like just very, I mean, I'm looking out in our front yard, which is just like stuff all over the place here. But we basically cut up, what do you call those things? Pool noodles. And we just stuck them on top of some metal things, because if you go out and buy hurdles, they're expensive. So any cheap solutions you can get, just to give yourself some kind of focus about how to do it. He does that a couple of times a week, you know, just to stretch out the groin and that flexibility in your hips.
What's the story with ordinary drills in terms of before sessions? Do you always do them regularly, or is it like a part of easy? Do you get lazy about them? Like sometimes we do. We don't as a group, but when we're separate, we might.
Yeah, usually before my runs, I do some stretching and stuff. Before workouts, I do a little bit more. So instead of like walking around doing some stretches, I try to stay active during my warm up. So in between my stretches, I would do like some skipping or like light jogging to like keep my muscles flowing. And so I do any types of stretches, quad stretches, calf stretches. And then after the stretches, I usually do like a few strides in my trainers, and then I throw on the spikes and do a few strides in them, and then I'm just ready to go.
What have you done cross country, Marcus? I don't know if I've seen much of it. Yeah,
I have.
And you like that, or no? It's just track track is fun.
Yeah,
Is it?
I like cross country. I've grown to like it, but I feel like it's a lot more challenging than track. You know, the hills, everything, the grass. It's just tougher. It's for tougher people as well.
You should be grand so with your granddad. He's tough as nails, that lad. Heavy hands.
Yes.
So, okay, I don't know if I have too many more questions unless there's anything anyone else wants to ask, or if you've more to say, guys, or tips.
What's the thinking behind the back-to-back days?
Well, I will say that certainly my approach is evolving, right? And so I never thought about doing that in regards to putting together a plan. When I looked at Jack Daniels and I read some of the reasons, I thought, yeah, that actually makes sense. Like, you know, you're not typically not as sore the day after a workout than you are 2 days after a workout. So there is that little bit of space in there that you can actually get some work done. You know, a few years ago, Salazar, for all all the drugs aside, they were starting to do some of that stuff. They were doing the races and then they were doing workouts. Now that I think is a challenge, but they were doing high quality stuff. The Ingrid Britson.
We're probably doing more than that. You're talking about Galen Rupp's famous session after his American record in 3 miles or something like that.
Yeah, we would never. I mean, you know, whenever you see a race, if you've really raced, you're on the ground and you can't get off it. They were doing certainly a lot more than just running. But the Ingrid Britsons are doing 2 quality sessions a day at aerobic kind of threshold stuff. So there is, you know, and you can get more, right? Because if you take a day off, normally when you do a session, you probably have to do 2 days off before you come back to another intense session. So what we try to do is in blocks, 2 days hard, then we'll go 2 days easy, and then we'll come back and potentially do 2 days again. So not every workout is a back-to-back. Sometimes it's just a 1 day, and then we go and we do a rest day and we come back. So, but it allows us to do more quality stuff in a shorter period of time, which is ideally, if you can do that, that's going to help you as long as you feel fully recovered.
Okay.
Okay, actually, one other thing I noticed. So, what I got from Paul and Marcus, and Paul did the whole, you know, parent thing, typing it up, but he keeps a good log. So we most of us are using these things, and we're on Strava or whatever, and we're just kind of lazy. You know, a caption is about as good as it gets as regard a log, you know, witty caption and a meme or whatever. But you're keeping your log in a physical diary, Marcus, and it's a diary that Roisin McGettigan releases. Yeah. Do you have it handy, or do you?
Yeah, I'll get it.
Yeah. Just show the guys the idea behind it. It's pretty cool. I'm curious of the layout of the thing. It was a brilliant business idea from Roisin, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so she partnered with Lauren Fleshman, I think in Stanford at the time. Maybe she has a different last name now, but you know, I say this to you, Mark, it's a really nice journal. Like I'm old school. I'll just pick up like a copybook and do my stuff. But having a physical journal, and Mark has started using Strava recently, but we're the ones that just encourage him, write it down. I mean, I've got journals from 15 years ago or 20 years ago from college days, and it's awesome to take them out and look at the times, but you can put you back into the session and put you back into the kind of pain. I mean, you can feel it, and it's a nice way to kind of bring it back to kind of current times, because my memory is certainly not that good. So I think it's nice that something you'll have that, you know, 15, 20, 30 years, it'll be awesome to be able to look back and think about those sessions that really helped you. So.
Yeah, I think there might be a part of it, just, you know, and I find Strava pretty good, actually, to be honest. I was not sure first, but there might be a part of it that, you know, when you sit down, like some of the sessions on the survey, we're saying, how did you find that? Or tell me about your time trial. Where you just sit down and write about it, then you can kind of think about what I'm going to do next. So here, flash it up there, Marcus, till we see it.
Oh, it's just like a book, and open it.
There you go. Next little page there.
Yeah. So it has basically a weekly like boxes for each day, and I write, you know, if I have like a run or something, I write how I feel. I write the time, the distance, and
pictures and stuff. You know.
Yeah. So I've had I have another one upstairs as well that was from like a year ago.
That's
And
it. That's why it was a great idea, because if you like it, you got to
Yeah.
buy it every year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just stores everything, you know. If
Yeah.
you're like, I wonder what I did 6 months ago, you can just go back and look at it, and it's very helpful.
And there's nice pictures and motivational quotes in there, and I mean, really nice to get as a gift for someone. I think, you know, we're always looking for like, you know, what do we get that runner? You know, I mean, this is like perfect, right? It's like it's designed by runners, it's for runners. So
yeah, no, that's good. That's cool, and we might be adding you on Strava after. If you're on Strava, you never know. So I don't have any more questions. Anybody else got anything? Oisin or anyone? No.
Yeah, I have one question.
Go, William. Yeah.
Is there a specific diet that you would follow in your training?
I don't have a specific diet, but I try to eat healthy, you know. At the end of the season, I'll go and eat whatever I want, you know, get fat.
gain fat. I get fat, but he doesn't, you know. So.
And then, you know, I try to eat healthy, you know, try load in carbs, proteins, everything you need. And there's nothing specific that I eat, but, you know, just try to keep it within moderation.
But, you know, I suppose there's different shit. Like the guy asking the question there, William, his uncle was a collegiate as well. Mike Fitzgerald, I don't know if you know Mike. It was Mike, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, your uncle. But what college was Mike with again? Was it over
Georgia
in
Tech?
Florida Tech. But yeah, like William would be an example of a guy who'd have a John Tracy type build. He wouldn't be the best at getting fat. Wouldn't have any interest, and if you did, it probably wouldn't suit you, you know. So, but there's all sorts of builds, you know. There's the strong, and you know, there's big, tall. Keith Kelly, big man, really too, isn't he? And
6'1", 6'2", and
yeah.
And Marcus is not a picky eater. He eats everything. So Dylan is very picky. He doesn't touch a vegetable. So, but Marcus would eat whatever you put on his plate. He'll eat, and so whether it's bad or good, he'll eat it. So, but I would say this year you're certainly more thoughtful about just not eating, you know, as much stuff. But we have sweets. You know, we have sweets. We have like, you know, ice cream. We would love to be better. It's certainly something that we want to work on, continually work on. When you get older, it affects you a lot more. But I think certainly there's research to be done for people who've gone vegan that has really worked for them. People who are vegetarians really worked for them. We don't do that, but that doesn't mean it's not something we would not do in the future. But I think everyone kind of works around what their preferences is, and also what's working for them as athletes.
Very good. Anyone else? Any questions? Emma, Anthony, Gavin, you can ask about. Gavin can tell you if the old lad has learned anything over the last 20 years about coaching, so he can tell you what he's doing these days. So
I think everything's fairly covered there now.
Fairly covered, yeah.
I don't know, maybe if there was kind of, I suppose, when you were training yourself, was there anything that you did other than running that you said had a good effect on your training? Or was it kind of just, I trained and then forgot about running for the rest of the day? Or was it just all 24/7 mindset? Like,
well, certainly it's great to have, I guess, distractions, right? But it's great to have other things that you're doing in your life, you know, and that's why, you know, going to college or having a job or having a hobby so that you can focus and have something else to focus on, I think is really important. So, because if you're living it all the time, I actually don't know how a professional athlete does it, because it's kind of mind-numbing to me. But I mean, happiness goes, you know, is everything, right? So and that's, I think, one of the toughest things I think that Irish athletes or international athletes face when they come to the United States is homesickness. The place can be incredible. It can have amazing resources, but if you're not happy and homesick, you're not going to be performing. So knowing in yourself, is this something that you can deal with and work through, and how close is it to being home, right? So, because otherwise it can feel a long way away, you know, when you're away from home, and, you know, if that's something that's important to you. For me, you know, I actually, you know, the thing was, for me, was different, because when I was about 14, I actually moved in with my grandmother. My grandfather passed away, and she needed someone to help her take care. So I actually moved out of our house. So, and then I had the opportunity to go down to North Mon, after a year and actually lived down in the monastery for a year with Brother Dooley and his folks. So I was ready for an independent opportunity. So, and there's people that are excited to do that. And, the United States is a perfect place for that. So be happy. If you're happy, your training will come along. You can almost do 100 different varieties of training, but if you're enjoying it, you'll certainly improve.
I suppose a good example of that was another Providence guy and an unbelievable athlete, Martin Fagan. Was Fagan around your time, or he was just after, I'd say, was he?
He was just after. I worked with
yeah.
Martin when I was a grad student, and he struggled to transition, really struggled.
Especially when he was a professional, he had a lot of problems that way, with the depression and all the rest of it. I think.
And it led to him taking the EPO, or I don't know if he took it, but he was certainly caught with it. And so, that's the thing. I mean, there's going to be lots of people that are doing the wrong stuff. You've got to be able to do the right stuff and be happy with your lot in life, because, there are masters that are cheating now. So don't let it be the be all and end all. Have other opportunities, have, relationships that you're in, have work opportunities, do a hobby, learn about running. If that's what you want to do, it's a good thing. And Marcus watches YouTube videos nonstop in running. But he's got other interests too.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, thanks a million, guys. Any more questions they want to ask or anything, or are you just ready to run? No, Grant.
Is there anything you can do to like increase recovery, like supplementing or ice baths or anything like that?
You're talking about like ice baths and
like amino acids or something like that.
Recover faster.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus takes like some. You go ahead. You talk.
Yeah, so we have a pool in the backyard, so we use that, and we have a hot tub as well, so we can use that for heat. And I take supplements. I take vitamin D. I don't even know what vitamins I take.
The drugs. I give you the EPO on front of the thing.
Vitamin D, iron, all the things to like strengthen your bones and muscles. And we also have different like recovery tools. We have foam rollers, those, what are those called?
Massage sticks.
Massage sticks. We have compression pants we can use. So getting the tools.
Just demonstrate.
The exact same one. Yeah.
So getting
I got that one in San Diego.
Getting the tools to recover is really important in becoming a better athlete.
Yeah, and Marcus and I started taking a little bit of iron. In January, he had ran well, right? He had broken the world record for the mile, and then he went off the boil a little bit. And he had a race coming up, but Steph actually said, let's get his ferritin checked, and it was fairly low. So at that time, he started just taking a supplement just to do that. So, if you've got an opportunity, or you're just feeling like, especially for women, if you're feeling like your iron is down, or you're feeling your ferritin levels, certainly staying on top of it is great, but getting a blood test once in a while just to give yourself a full scope to see where you stand, because there can be nothing as frustrating as trying your best and your body just won't even do it. I mean, I had low iron in college, and it's shocking. You try to run up a hill and you're just like on your knees. So.
Definitely. And if you do end up in a GP's or anything, or even once a year to get your iron checked, is just something to ask them. They won't do it unless you ask them. So it's definitely something to do. Well, that's it. I'm out of ideas, but unless somebody else has anything else they want to ask. Are you going again?
Yeah.
Go for it.
If you was a coach, I know you're saying that he was doing a bit of biking and Zwift. I was wondering if you as a coach think cross training is like a really good idea, or what do you think about that, cross training wise?
Well, he's just competitive. So, he got in, we were like, oh, let's do a little bit of biking. I actually had a bike, and so I had a trainer that I never used. And so he's just like, oh, let me just jump on it. And then it became like, oh, I want to be in a Zwift race. Let me do this. So he's been playing around with it more so, I'd say, than going like every day. And I like kind of like 10-mile races, so it's something to be doing. I mean, at least I'm finding that, some of these virtual races are great, but they're not the real like competitive, races that you want. So this was a different opportunity for him just to kind of jump in and be competitive with other people. So cross training is wonderful. I think if you can get off your feet more, nothing replaces running for running though. So at least in my mind, you've got to be running. You've got to be running a decent amount of work to get better at running. But once or twice a week, jumping on a bike, doing a swim, I think can only help you.
Yeah, so we've a few there. Luke, who asked the question, is on Triathlete Ireland, in one of the squad members. So is Emma, so is Ross and Matisse and Anthony as well. So we have a bunch of triathletes that could probably put it up to you, and at least one skill there. But I don't know about the other over the triathlon. So yeah, the only competition we have now is Kyle trying to take Kevin Mooney's segments around Clarn Bridge. That's about it. So that's it, guys. Thanks a million for this. Unless somebody else has another question they want to ask, I'm happy if you're happy.
Would you have any advice for say the transition from high school to university or further on the field like that?
You talking about coming to the United States or?
No, just a general transition from high school is kind of not as competitive as if you go to university or senior athletics, kind of.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I certainly could speak. I mean, I didn't go to college in Ireland, so it would be wrong for me to talk a lot about that system. But I do work. I mean, my job is, I oversee an advising center at the university, so work a lot with first-year students and just transitioning. Take your time. Set your expectations a little bit lower, because it will not be a linear progression for sure. Certainly in your first year. But then your second year or third year, you might just take off, So, one of the things is being kind to yourself. Runners don't do that well enough. It's a lot of hard work sometimes by yourself. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Give yourself a pat in the back. Just say you got working, whatever that may have been. So, but find your people, right? Because it is easy to go to university and party. It exists, it's easy to, find folks that are not as focused as you. So identifying good, productive groups that are running, balancing their academics and their training, and then not necessarily jumping up in significant mileage, because you might be going more miles and even at a faster pace is just going to be a recipe for disaster. So using the first year to almost just stay level with your training, maybe in volume wise, and maybe the intensity increases, but you've only added one stressor. You haven't added multiple stressors, because maybe you're living away from home. It's a huge transition for sure.
Thank you.
Yep, that's good stuff. I suppose a famous example of that was Eamon Coughlin, who went over there and had to come back because Jumbo, whoever his name was, giving him crazy sessions, or it seemed crazy, 20 by 400. And he just had enough of this and had to come back. And then he said he'd give it another go, didn't he?
Yeah.
And it worked out well for him.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's fantastic. Thanks a million for that, Paul and Marcus. We took more of your time than I thought it'd take, but but that's great, and I really appreciate it. And sure, listen, if you're over this side, call down, or we'll call over to Lochray, and we'll give you an all run. And you might be surprised, some of the crew here are fairly zesty, and the same to Dylan obviously as well, and yourself, Paul, if you can still shuffle around. I didn't realize you're quite a bit younger than me, but
Gavin has seen me. I'm a photographer now.
Are you? Okay. Grand. So if we want to find you, we look on NPR Running, is it?
Yeah, I have a website.
Yeah, excellent.
Instagram and Strava and every possible social media channel.
Every social media, grand. So that's it. Keep it up.
Not TikTok yet.
Not TikTok. No. That's one I'm not on either. So, all right. Thanks a lot, guys. And sure, we'll see you again. Have a nice day.
Yeah, great seeing you all. Hopefully we'll see you over in Boston at some point.
Have a big wave, guys.
Cheers.
See you. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, bye.